Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven on WNHH-FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. We got a big story in New Haven now, one that has implications for the entire nation as communities like New Haven wrestle with a growth in homelessness and a shortage of solutions. We have in the studio today a man who's decided to go ahead and work on one solution of his own, which is tiny houses for people who are homeless and not going to conventional shelters. His name is Mark Colville. He's one of the runners of the Catholic Worker House on Rosette Street in New Haven, and he's in the news because the government's trying to shut him down. Also with us is Colleen Shattuck, who's a supporter of Mark and the Catholic Workers House's efforts to house the unhoused with a group called Rosette Village, Neighborhood Village. Is that what it's called, Colleen? And I didn't hear you. I guess okay. Let me get your sound better. And they're part of the reason Mark had the capital to be able to get this going. Welcome both of you, and thanks for coming, making time during this period of time to come on Dateline New Haven.
Thank you.
So Mark, I'm trying to figure out why I gotta hear you a little better. So Mark, tell me how you got this idea. I guess it was just 2 weeks ago. It feels like forever ago, right? You were having homeless people live in tents on your yard at the Catholic Worker House, which is on Rosette Street in the Hill. You got some extra land there. You used to, remember, I think it was a community garden there once or something. And you put up tents for the homeless there, and the kind of community developed there. People have been thrown out of other tent encampments. And now you found someone who you related to who hooked you up with these prefab shelters, 64 to 100 square feet. You put 6 of them up on your property. Homeless people are staying in them. And I guess about 10 people?
Well, there's the 6 units housing 8 people right now, and that's in addition to, we still have at least a dozen people in tents as well.
So, you still have tents there?
Oh, yes, yeah.
And are you hoping to move them eventually, or?
Well, what we're hoping for is, and I'll get into it a little bit, is the, that the city will partner with this neighborhood, with this basically solution to homelessness, which has arisen from a neighborhood. We're not asking the city for much in the way of money or anything. Just just to partner with us in the in taking care of this problem. And again, we have a number of people that are still dwelling in tents, and that's a subhuman existence here in New Haven in the winter, as we all know. So
Mark,
there's an emergency going on here.
How did you get the idea to have these prefab shelters put in?
Well, this
Tiny
project.
houses.
This project, from Amistad's perspective, which is where I come,
Amistad Catholic Worker House.
Amistad Catholic Worker, our House of Hospitality, has been in place for upwards of 30 years. This particular project was really hatched by this Rosette Village Neighborhood Collective, which is a collection of folks from literally from all over New Haven County and elsewhere in the state. A lot of people from the suburbs, in fact, that became really disturbed about, as we are, about the continued, bulldozing of homeless encampments for the unhoused, which have really become the only sense of community that people who are homeless can really experience anymore. And so we decided, so this project fits into a campaign that we've been on for a solid 10 years now. Back in 2013, the United Nations did a study of U.S. cities nationwide to evaluate their compliance or non-compliance with the UN Universal Declaration on Human Rights. Okay, I would encourage people to go find that on the internet. Commission on Human Rights and Racial Discrimination. What they found was a plethora of municipal laws nationwide that criminalize homelessness. The one that they flagged most was that people, according to the UN Universal Declaration on Human Rights, have a right to take refuge on unused public land together when the city and the state does not provide them with adequate, affordable housing.
And how is unused defined?
Well, we've been walking around our neighborhood long enough to see vacant buildings and vacant properties sitting simply as an investment for the capitalist venture that housing development has become. So, people who are unhoused the way the situation is now, people are essentially evicted from shelters every morning at 7 o'clock and sent into the neighborhoods, into two neighborhoods, essentially, the Hill and Fairhaven. Okay, so for 30 years, I've lived in the Hill as a homeowner, and we have had these unacknowledged neighbors with kind of a standing order when they leave.
And
the
is there an
shelters.
understanding with law enforcement, if unspoken, like if you go to that abandoned house in the back, we're not going to bother you, but if you go on this block, we are?
Well, what we're dealing with here is an emergency. We don't have time to sort that sort of stuff
All
out.
right, so let me bring back to, so you took this step for 10 years. You've been dealing with this issue, the human right to shelter. You took it one step now with these tiny houses. How did you get the idea for the tiny houses? How did you get for these
Well, again, this was
metal shelters?
This was a response that came from this collective that, again, came forward having seen the human suffering involved in these evictions from public spaces, and that they wanted to do something about it. Our position, again, for 10 years now has been that we are going to assert, simply from with as much emphasis and power that we have as neighborhood residents, we are going to help people assert their right to build their own home in their own neighborhood. Okay, when the city inaction and the economic realities exclude them from that.
So these shelters, they're made out of what?
They're made of some composite material. It's very interesting to me that that everybody seems to be taking such an interest in this.
I'm really interested.
Yeah,
Like,
but,
how are you going to build
I
homes
mean,
for the homeless? I
you
think
know,
it's really interesting.
But 4 weeks
It's different
ago,
from a tent.
4 weeks ago, these same people were living in tents, and they were then identified universally in this city as homeless people. Suddenly, they have structures that are a little more human, a little warmer, a little more
I
permanent.
guess I'm interested in it because cities
Okay,
are looking.
but now they're no longer homeless people. Now they're tenants. Now we're housing developers.
Okay, we're going to
No,
get to,
we are
the
human
legal.
rights develop. We
We're
are
talking
human
about
rights
the legal.
defenders.
I'm just interested in the fact because I think other cities
Yeah.
are looking at what are they going to do for the homeless
Right.
populations in the winter. So
All
these
right,
are
well,
made.
here's
Are
what-
these made out of metal or wood?
They're made out of some composite material and I believe steel or aluminum.
And do they have beds?
They have beds. They have electricity. They have heating and cooling units.
Oh, okay.
Of
They have
course,
cooking?
we have developed. No, they don't have. That's what the idea of a homeless or an unhoused encampment. And again, this is not something that we made up. This has been replicated all over this country. The company that we bought the homes from contracts with over 100 municipalities nationwide.
Oh, so municipalities nationwide are buying these tiny houses.
Absolutely. They're contracting mostly with cities.
Like
now,
what
some
are
agencies,
some cities where you'd find these?
Well, actually, Providence, Rhode Island is reconsidering now. They had a plan in place. There was some reaction, the old NIMBY stuff, not in my backyard. Well, we've decided YIMBY is the way to go. Yes.
So where
in
would
my
I find
backyard.
these? Like, where does this company have
Okay,
them up?
Vermont constructed one with, I believe it was 45 or 50 of
Oh,
them
wow. And how's that
on
going?
a designated piece of public land. It's going great. And that's what we've been asking for at Amistad for 10 years. Simply cajoling, demanding, asking, begging that every winter all we get from the city is this emergency funding coming in and warming centers where people have to sit up all night. They're not allowed to lay down. What we're simply saying is when you recognize people's human right to take refuge somewhere, then
And I do.
if they did that, I would agree with the mayor. We shouldn't
Okay,
be
you're
doing this.
getting into
Let
the
me
argument with
finish.
the mayor.
We
I wanna
should
get
not
to
be
that.
doing this in our backyard.
wanna get to
it
the
should be
argument.
done on a designated piece of public
Okay.
land.
And I do
which,
wanna-
again, another 100 or more cities have already done across the
Okay,
country.
so Mark, I do want to get to the argument you're having with the mayor. I want to get first to what you're doing, which is really interesting. And we're talking
Yeah.
about the new tiny houses on Rosette Street, the Amistad Catholic Worker House on WNHH-FM, 103.5 FM, Lost Gene, NewHavenInput.org. So do they have water?
No.
So
Okay,
the plumbing, so
so-
they go into your house to go to the bathroom and to eat.
Yeah, so the thing is designed so that you need like a central place where people can access a kitchen, bathroom facility, showers, laundry, all of which we have in the House of Hospitality.
Well, it also makes it a lot safer
Put
if you don't have-
$50,000 into rehabbing it. I'm sorry?
And it also makes it a lot safer if the shelters themselves aren't dealing with cooking and.
Yeah, certainly. And again, this is a mode of transitional housing. Okay, when we're talking about transitional housing, we're saying that there's a gap between the institutionalization of a shelter and living in an apartment. that most people who go directly from one to the other, who have been chronically homeless, that's a situation that's set up for failure. And we at Amistad have seen it for 30 years. People get on the housing list. They get housing. They're not prepared. They have forgotten how to be a neighbor, how to be accountable to other people. Because they've been socialized into individualism, competition with others over a mythical scarcity of resources. All of these things that city policy and law socializes people into. They have to learn. They have to get socialized out of that in order for independent living to work. So
okay,
this
so it
is a
sounds like-
model of transitional
Okay, so it
housing.
sounds like you do really want to talk about the argument with the city, so let's bring that up. So the city sent you a cease and desist letter, and the state has too, and they say there's a state building code that we do have so people will be safe. There's zoning rules about what can go where. I'm actually not a fan of zoning, so let's leave zoning aside. Let's just talk about safety. So they say that, the ghost ship, remember in Daggett Street when a lot of people were living in that, some landlord was taking money from all these people to live in the artist studios, and there
Yes.
were no exits. And people cleared them out. And a few weeks later, the ghost ship, all those people died in Oakland at a similar facility. And the city said, that's why we do it, that you got to make sure people are safe. We have rules so that people are safe, and that we work
Right.
with homeless shelters. We work with supportive housing places like Liberty, Safe Haven. So they said, Mark, you got to go through the process, which takes a long time. And they might not even approve it in the end. So
Yes.
they're saying you have to really stick by our rules because that's for public safety. What was your response to that?
Okay, so what
they
we're
want
saying,
you to take them down.
we're echoing the governor, first of all. The Governor Lamont has declared that homelessness in the state of Connecticut is a public health crisis. That unleashes, it seems like City Hall here just seems to be viewing that as rhetoric, maybe designed to attract more emergency money for the agencies that this money always gets thrown at to take care of homeless people. I think that's the extent to which City Hall at this point has contemplated what the governor has
Well, what
done.
they argue is they spend more money than any other
Yeah, but
city that
that's
do
the-
shelters,
No,
they
but-
do warming centers.
We're talking about the city's refusal to permit this. Okay, that was your question.
Yeah.
Okay, my response is, we live in a state where the governor has declared homelessness to be a public health crisis. That gives the mayor complete authority
to override
bypass
those rules.
zoning laws.
Okay.
It gives him complete authority to come and have breakfast with us and look at these homes. They are built very carefully. We had a landscape architect come
So he
in
did not come-
and lay
he didn't
this
come
out.
visit?
We did not just assemble these homes. We have experts that have designed the whole backyard for these homes.
So you're making the
Okay?
argument because
they
the
are
emergency-
safe, is what you're bringing
I'm
up a
not
question of
questioning it.
safety.
Yeah, okay.
These are safe according to zoning laws and city laws and building laws.
And you're saying he
These
can
are
overcome
safe.
some of the zoning laws because it's an emergency.
Yes.
What about the process of determining that it's safe? You had the
Okay,
fire
but-
marshal in, right?
But please, before we get to that question, just understand now what the mayor is saying is that we are violating the rights of our neighbors, okay, of our the people that live around us, okay. And so my response to that is, this is a plan, and that the neighborhood has been included in from day one. It has been consented to by everybody who lives around there, and nobody is complaining. Nobody's calling City Hall. Nobody's even calling the police.
So now for
when
your
there's
brother-
a problem, they talk to their neighbors, and we solve the problem. So this is the context in which our mayor is saying, whoa, put the brakes on this, okay, because we need to shuffle some paperwork to make sure it's okay. They want people to vacate these homes now to go where? Someplace safer? I'm waiting for the apartments that are going to be available. And let's not forget now, 4 blocks away from where people in my backyard are sleeping in tents, the city has approved a developer to come in and rehab about 100 units of housing. Okay? 4 blocks away. The cheapest apartment in these buildings is going to be a 1-room studio for $2,100 a month. Homelessness in our neighborhood is an emergency, and the emergency is tonight. I am not a housing developer. Neither is Carlene, nor is our committee. What we are is human rights defenders. And by the way, human rights law is binding and superseding law in this city. when it comes to
Let
zoning
me ask
laws.
Colleen. So, Colleen Sachs, you wrote a book. You co-authored a book with Joanne Goldblum called Broken America. You talked about the increase in poverty. We're reading stories about just about every state, cities throughout the country. Homeless people are more visible because there are more of them. There's a whole range of causes, one of which Mark talked about, how insanely high the rents are. They talked about in Seattle, the churches have made parking lots available for people living in their cars with salaries up to $77,000. And there's a whole predatory capitalism part of it was like her car payments are like 29%. But what, in writing your book, how does, you're now helping Rosette Street, you raise money for them.
Yep.
How does this fit into what you learned about why poverty is increasing and why homelessness is increasing in America?
Oh, it fits perfectly.
And I'm going to get closer to the mic. Yeah.
Okay, just to add on a bit to what Mark just said, nobody thinks that these people are going to be made to vacate. This is a rhetorical device.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about folks who have been through the trauma of eviction again and again. They're finally putting pictures on the walls because they have walls. Like, I wish that we could find a more productive way to argue about this. We're all adults. We all have lawyers. Let's work it out.
So tell me about what you learned about poverty. Why do we see this situation that the Catholic Worker House is addressing? Why does Catholic Workers need to step in now?
There was a slight bump in wages post-COVID because of the labor shortage that a lot of employers are experiencing. But basically, since the 1970s, wages have been flat in the United States. And at the same time, healthcare and housing costs have increased exponentially.
So we understand all the root causes with healthcare from sort of the capitalist model that puts profit first, the denial of care, as well as expensive life-saving strategies. But why is housing going up so much?
Because housing is a commodity, right? Housing is something you can invest in. You know, everybody has a Zillow link where they can find out what their house is worth today. It's a ridiculous inflation that shouldn't be focused on a basic need.
Now, it's always been true, and I happen to agree. I agree with you philosophically about the basic need question, whether the private market could solve it. Why is it going up more now? Why are we seeing so much more of it now? From Portland to Montana to Tennessee to Florida to New Haven.
Like so many things, I blame Ronald Reagan. The federal government used to invest in housing, used to build affordable housing, used to do better on funding folks to get into housing. There's almost...
We do have a huge wait list for Section 8, for instance.
It's
the
years.
And the other thing Reagan did was he deinstitutionalized mental institutions without having a plan in place for people who would go in the community. When we started seeing homelessness reemerge, New Haven actually was in 1981, when it were people who had been deinstitutionalized, which is why we got Columbus House.
And, you know, we are the richest society in human history. The fact that homelessness is increasing is absolutely scandalous. It doesn't have to be.
So let me ask you both, Mark and Colleen, when we look at this tiny, you're helping 8 people right now, hopefully more, on Rosette Street. What can cities learn from this in terms of dealing with this problem of homelessness? What are we learning on Rosette Street that can help America deal with its challenging homelessness problem right now?
Well, I would say one thing that we can learn is that you can't solve the problem of homelessness simply by money and facilities and, you know, essentially warehousing people in the most efficient way. What we need is, you know, people need 2 feet on the ground from which they can fight their way out of poverty. And in order to do that, you need some sense of community. That's why, you know, even these tent cities, it's so tragic to have them continue to be bulldozed because, again, as I said in the beginning, that is really the only form of community that's afforded to people who are unhoused right now. And if the city would simply begin its service delivery with the recognition of people's basic human rights, then, you know, a sense of neighbor, a sense of personhood could come back into the community of the unhoused.
And what about with substance abuse? I know that a lot of people, now this is not the only reason people have more homelessness. The rising rents are the biggest factor, it seems to me. But what about a lot of people don't want to go to shelters or be in supportive housing places with the rules, partly because they are choosing to, or not choosing, but are addicted to opioids, and that's a very serious challenge.
I still think you have to look at the economic side of it. My father was an alcoholic who could not work for the last few years of his life. He was basically bedridden. We weren't homeless. My
I'm not
mom-
suggesting anyone should be homeless because they're addicted to drugs. I'm wondering
no,
how do
no,
you deal
I'm,
with
I'm
it?
not
Yeah.
saying that they should. I don't think that you're saying that they should be. But we were not homeless because my mom could afford our mortgage as a waitress. That's just not true anymore.
Yeah.
There are no affordable options. You know, we all have problems. We all get sick sometimes. We all get laid off sometimes. Stuff happens
So
in your
basically, when I
life.
keep asking you, should we just build a lot more tiny houses? You're saying the more fundamental question is that the private market can't be dependent on to have affordable housing in America. So that in fact we have to invest more in a housing first federal government plan to just make a lot more housing available to people. Is that kind of the answer?
I'm not necessarily saying the federal government has to do it. I'm saying that
Or
we have
federal
to,
and state?
you know, we have to rework things so that housing isn't a profit center, it's a people center. You know, you said what is Rosette teaching the world? The thing that attracted me to Rosette was the idea of looking at unhoused people as neighbors. And Rosette was a wonderful place when it was just tents, before there were tiny houses, because people felt a sense of belonging and agency and freedom and responsibility. And we can't have a system to respond to homelessness that takes those things away from people. We can't make people less than they are. Rosette recognizes what they
And
are.
tell me more about Catholic Worker Movement. I always immediately, my brain says Dorothy Day as soon as I hear that, you know, so like so long standing, I guess at least a century old movement within the Catholic Church that the deeds to help those most in need are the best manifestation of what it means to be a religious person. Is that accurate? It's always been so.
Yeah, the Catholic Workers started in the Depression in the early 1930s, and it's just centered around a couple of or a few basic principles, namely the daily practice of the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. Okay, the nonviolence as a personal lifestyle and as a method for changing the social realities around us, beginning in the neighborhood. You know, a common lifestyle, we call it, you know, traditional notion in the churches of voluntary poverty, which to us, it's like a simplicity of lifestyle where we consider ownership in a different way. Like whatever we own is, we do our best to put it at
And
the
so you've been
service of
30
the
years
community.
on Rosette, right?
We've been 30 years living in each, you know, there are about maybe 200 Catholic worker houses nationwide, mostly in urban areas, but also farms and such. And what they do, each is its own entity, which is to say each community sort of tries to live out those principles in their own.
And as I
neighborhood.
remember when it first came on my radar was you'd have, was it once a week, twice a week, huge lunches for people in your kitchen?
Well, what we settled into was serving 2 meals a day,
2 meals a day.
5 days a week, you know, for the past almost 30 years. We also have, you know, Thursday we would have a big neighborhood gathering because, you know, literally so many donations of food and produce and all sorts of stuff would come in that we would have like a neighborhood day where we, you know, give it all away. And we'd invite people, you know, our neighbors, if you have anything you want to give away, like your kids grew out of their clothes or whatever, we would call it a give and take. So those are the things that we've been sort of based on all these years. And then
what is the philosophy of first serving people's immediate corporal needs as part of a larger process to help them on their own address the structural reasons for poverty in our society? Christian Community Action does a lot of that. House the people and then have them become advocates for changing state laws. Is that similar with Catholic Worker House, that you're both a service and a structural change organization?
We are, and I think that, you know, it's key to us to understand that in order for social change to happen, I have to change. Okay, which means that our service to people, and this actually comes from Catholic social teaching. You know, our service is supposed to move us towards solidarity with people. In other words, beginning to first identify with the issues that really are affecting them and their family lives, et cetera, and then try to move ourselves closer to that experience, so that on some level we can share the experience, given the place of privilege that we come from. You know, the more we can cross over into sharing that experience, the more possibilities of transformation for the whole neighborhood.
Well,
So we're trying to put our own educations, for example, at the service of the community.
Before I let you go, I want to ask you what's coming up next. So you've been raising money in Guilford, and people kind of made fun of that in the comments section, saying, sure, they'll give you money from Guilford because they don't want people living in Guilford, right? But is the answer sort of like, we're going to take it where we can get it because we want to get people homes?
That's right.
Well, no, I mean, I think that I'm looking at my community as cutting across the suburban lines. I came from there, and that's still my home. Those are still my people. We're not, the segregation in this state needs to be addressed as well. And I think this is an issue where, again, people on their own initiative, have come forward, both from all corners of this state, in order to work on this. So we're not.
I thought it was really impressive the way you raised the money to put this thing up. So you're raising more money. I want to ask people how they can help. You have an event on November 11th. Tell us about that.
November 11th at Zion Episcopal Church in North Brantford. I will be making you brunch. It will be absolutely delicious.
What is it going to be?
You will, oh my goodness, vegan French toast.
Oh, vegan French toast? Do you use soy milk or oat milk?
I use silken tofu, which I blend with coconut milk. It tastes better than the real
Because I'm vegan. I've never made good vegan veg toast before.
Well, you need to come.
Yeah.
And for the carnivores,
good.
there's going to be poached salmon and court bouillon with tzatziki and Moroccan chicken and
now
carrot
that stands up to the French toast. So how do people go? How do they find out about it?
So go to rosettevillage.org, our website, and you will. It's both.
Oh, it is. Sorry.
And you will find a place to get your tickets and have a lovely, lovely time.
Can you also go there just to donate money without going to the event?
You can donate money to us any day.
So rosettevillage.org or .com, you choose. You go there
and
you
we
give
are
the
going to
money.
have there at the event, we'll have a roundtable discussion where some of the folks living in the backyard will have a chance to speak, and maybe a Q&A. So if people who are hearing this want to bring some of your own perspective to this, it'd be great.
And finally, any chance you'll be shutting down when the city gives you the notices, or you're here to stay?
Well, as I've become fond of saying the past few days, we can't cease because we have a commitment to people, and we will certainly never desist because we're defending people's human rights.
Well, it's been
Amen.
such an honor to talk to both of you today. Mark Colville from the Amistad Catholic Worker House, and Colleen Shaddix, co-author of Broken America, and from the Rosette Village Collective, ensuring that New Haven and our area cannot ignore the plight of homelessness and the search for solutions.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thanks,
All
Paul.
right, and I want to thank Nora Grace Flood for arranging today's show and the great reporting she's been doing on this story. That's how I know everything about what you're doing. And Harry Drost, our station manager, for linking us up to all elements of the multiverse. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH-FM, New Haven's home for community radio.